love what you do, and that's success. If you're happy and you love what you do, you get up every morning excited to go to work and kind of have a plan, game plan in your mind as you're driving to work. You can't beat that.
The Converse Cowboy Journey has given me an opportunity to sit down with some amazing performers that are living the Western lifestyle, where it is my job to tease out their habits and routines so that you can apply and test yourself in your own life. I've learned, I've grown personally, I've been enlightened, and I've been humbled. Above all, I realize that there is no destination in this life, no goal achieved or money made that can replace the feeling of flow and the pursuit of doing what you love to do. With a growth mindset, I'm constantly asking questions and pursuing knowledge. The Converse Cowboy is a platform that allows me to do just that. I'm excited and eager to share their stories with you all. I'm Mike Roberts. This is the Converse Cowboy. Brought to you by 𝗢𝗄𝗄𝗿 and Schaefer Outfitter.
So Rick, we're good, man. It's going to be no different than what we've been doing before we started rolling these cameras. First, I'd like to thank you for coming on today and sharing your time. I say this on every show, time is our most valuable asset, so I do genuinely appreciate you sharing it with me and the listeners, because essentially that is why I do this show. It's for my own personal growth, but also so they can get something out of it. And so
You're welcome.
So there's a few things I want to tap into. You've been doing this retail thing for quite some time, and so I want to tap into Rick, the individual, the mindset it takes to be an entrepreneur, especially in today's times, with all of the unknowns. And then I want to tap into Schaefer and the brand and everything that goes into operating a business today. And then after that, I want to get into what's next. And so we'll start, I guess I'm curious, and then let me back up. I do want to say this too, man. I first met Rick, it would have been the Futurity this past year in December, where we somewhat invaded your space here at Schaefer in the stockyards. And so for that, I'm super grateful. There was the NFR going on, the Futurity, Cowboy Christmas. There was a lot of shit going on. And for you to open your doors with all of the controlled chaos that y'all had going with customers coming in, that's a big deal to me. And so I really appreciate you sharing your space with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Feelings mutual.
Thank you. So I want to kind of get a little bit of a backstory, let listeners know a little bit about Rick. So how and when did you take this road down the retail path, down the entrepreneur path?
When we graduated from college, Lynn and I, we moved out to California and ended up running a graphic arts studio, but we ended up changing it to more almost like an ad agency type format. We didn't buy media, but we did everything. And from building booths to logo development to catalogs and so forth. And we really got into the catalog side of things with different businesses in Palm Springs. We did all the graphics introduced the first seedless watermelon. There's a lot of produce companies down there. So that's what I ended up doing. Lynn was by my side then too.
Were you all married at the time?
Yep. And she was kind of an office manager, and I was the front man for the company. And it's probably the most money I ever made in the shortest period of time. The problem is that it was 120 degrees there. And it's just hot,
Yeah.
There really isn't, the culture there is you work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had our daughter was born out there, and we just decided we wanted to go back up to Steamboat. And so I took some accounts with me to kind of keep some income coming in, and so I was flying back and forth, but a friend of mine told me about a catalog company that was in Steamboat, and I had no idea that it even existed. It was called Soda Creek. So Soda Creek was basically doing like a newspaper catalog, a tabloid, and I went and talked to them, and they were kind of in the market to have somebody help them go to the next level in terms of growing their customer base, their mail order base, redoing the catalog to an 8.5 by 11. And so I took that over, and in a period of 18 months, we went from 8,000 buyers to 24,000 buyers. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Always was, I'm a small town guy, always grew up, around Western folks, and wore Western clothing. And so, that's what all this was about. And so it was a lot of fun. In the meantime, sort of there was a transition of ownership because one of the owners was dying of cancer, and a new guy came in and bought his half. Jeff Lane, whose family, his dad invented the spiral-bound notebook, and his dad's dream was to put together the original land grant of the Bell Ranch in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So the total land grant was from the King of Spain to this Englishman was 700,000 acres, and he was up to 375, and then actually was killed on the ranch. There's a road that goes down in there, and my understanding is he wrecked and passed away. But so Jeff is Jeff is in, as an owner, rancher kind of guy, very down to earth. And then another group kind of came in, and they all went in and bought Schaefer, and from the Bank of Boise.
What year would that have been?
90.
Okay.
90. So yeah, it was like totally gone at that point.
Really?
Yeah.
So it started in 82, right?
Started in 82 by Cub Schaefer, and then he lost it. He got foreclosed on, and the bank had owned Schaefer.
Okay.
And so these guys bought it, and the minority group, one of the head of the minority group started running it, and he really wasn't getting much traction. He wasn't getting much going on, and they asked me if I wanted to run the company, and I said, sure, yeah, that'd be great. I didn't really know what Schaefer was.
What made you say yeah?
Just the challenge.
Okay.
The challenge of rebranding and starting it over and all that. It was a lot of fun. So we did that, and I worked with Jeff. We shot down at the Bell Ranch, which was unbelievable,
right.
Experience, and really got to know, where I want my customers to be, who I want them to be, from that influence.
Right.
And years went by, and Lynn and I ended up buying the company in 2000.
Okay.
And then we, in 2008, my dream was that the production was, most of the production was coming out of Utah. It was difficult. We were dealing with a Navajo sewing operation in Four Corners, and then that went up to Salt Lake. I ended up moving it all down to El Paso, and sort of my dream at the time was I set up my own sewing operation down there. I had contractors, but I also had my own sewing operation that eventually, over 2 or 3 years, that everything would be under one roof. So you had, the production, the warehouse, offices, everything was going to be in one place. But where we started was we had the factory in El Paso, and then I bought a building in Las Cruces, which is 40 minutes up the road,
right.
Which was a pretty cool spot we had.
Yeah.
And And then everything kind of went south, in 2000, late 2000, in 2008.
Yeah, right.
Everything got really tough.
Right.
And so that kind of changed the whole model of what I was going to do. So no, you can't do this right now, and really started. We always had a direct channel, a mail order channel, but that's when we started to increase our presence directly to the consumer was in fall of 2008.
I got you.
Increasing the number of catalogs we mailed out and so forth.
I got you.
Yeah.
I want to back up just for a second. You made that sound very easy, taking on this, not a new business, but an existing business that had kind of failed. What were some of those learning curves that you learned in those early days, and like who were some of the mentors, or like how did you gain that knowledge, not ever having owned a retail business before?
Most of it was self-taught, just looking at what everybody else was doing out there, and how do I brand myself differently, the most difficult thing was production, getting stuff made in a timely manner, especially early on. It was really, really tough. Really.
Why is that? Like because you don't know who to go to, or like what was it? And how do you make those connections in an unknown area?
I would say it was trial and error. You talk to people and they say, yeah, I can do it, and they're qualified to do it, and it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Or they'll say, yeah, we agree upon a price, and then they decide they want more, and so that was just the story of my life for probably 4 years until I got to El Paso. The Indian thing was great. The problem is that Bureau of Indian Affairs really was kind of in charge of that, and they would hire these overly educated guys to run the place, and they didn't know what they were doing, and then they started commingling the money that's really supposed to go to the ladies sewing, and they weren't getting paid. And so I was driving down there every Friday to Four Corners from Steamboat with paychecks, and I wasn't going to pay him anymore. So I went down and paid him directly. I sent a proposal to BIA on them being able to own it, that we would have a phase-in period where we're kind of partners, and then by year 3 they owned it.
Right.
And they didn't want to do that.
Right.
To this day, that building sits empty with brand new machines, brand new cutting tables. There's never ever been anybody in there since I pulled out, and that was 93.
Wow.
That was 93.
So you pack up, you move from Steamboat to Las Cruces.
Right.
And then from how long were you in Las Cruces?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
And then you said, okay, we need to do something different. What was it that triggered the move out of Las Cruces?
There's a little gap here. In 2014, we had a family out of Houston buy us out, and so they bought the company. They moved it to Houston.
Was it for sale, Rick, or did they see the opportunity and
he had looked at it prior when we were in Steamboat, and passed on it at that time, which was probably 06, 07. And bought the company lock, stock, and barrel. and you know, they kind of had their own vision of what they were going to do, and we walked away. We weren't involved in any kind of transition. We were there for a week. It was kind of strange. But you know, my customers, my suppliers, they're all friends. Mm-hmm. And you know, not a day went by where somebody wasn't texting me or calling me or emailing me going, "You can't believe what's going on here," you know. And I was getting ready to do something else. And
what was on your mind? So you sell a business. I'm sure you made a decent chunk of money, and
I was going to take over a financial planning book. So I passed my Series 7, my Series 66, all the other licenses that go around with it. First time around, thank you. It's very tough.
Yeah, it's
very
impressive.
Tough.
Hell yeah.
Pretty tough deal. And right when I was getting ready to go in, they called me up and said, "Is there any way you can bring your team down here and take this over?" And I wasn't in favor of that. You know, I had spent so much time getting this other gig going on, mm-hmm. that I wasn't really.
How much time had gone by?
About a year and a half.
Okay.
About a year and a half. But Nick and Lynn, you know, really wanted to do it, and kind of we were invited to a board meeting that spring and of 2016, and I'm just sitting here listening to the people that were involved in running it, and I'm just going, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is terrible." And we got together afterward, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to do this. I'll take it over."
Yeah.
And so we moved down there. We were there for about a year. We inherited some weird, expensive stuff that they did, like for our size, you know, $100,000 sponsorships and things like that, times two. Mm. You know, expensive, way, way, way out of the budget for a company our size. But one of them was the Fort Worth Stock Show. Mm. So I'm at a show in Denver. Lynn and Nick were set up for Fort Worth Stock Show.
So for folks that don't know, Nick, your son Nick, your wife Lynn, they're in Fort Worth running the show. Right.
Yeah, they inherited a sponsorship and a booth and all that. We inherited that, and I was at the wholesale show in Denver, and I called up and said, "How are things going?" She says, "You're not going to believe this. You are not going to believe it. We are just kicking ass right now." And I said, "Oh, great." You know, so we when I got down here, it was amazing. It was amazing. And it's kind of funny that you've been in the business this whole time and really not know mm-hmm. the consumer side of things in this area. Mm. You know, you go and call on Letty's and go see Maverick, and you know, you're traveling and seeing your accounts and never really think about everything else that's going on right. in the community.
Right.
And it was like a cult thing by the time I got here, you know, for that show.
Yeah.
By the second week, I'm driving around early in the morning looking for, you know, the feasibility of relocating, and how much, you know, what's the rents, you know, so on and so forth. Where do we want to be?
Right.
That kind of thing. And by March, this was in January, by March, we had early April, we found the place out on I-20, and I went to these guys. I said, "I'm moving the company to Fort Worth." They said, "Okay, fine."
Yeah, so they kind of just gave you the reins. They saw what you had done
they're,
before, and
yeah, they're not. They totally, you know, we treat it like our own still.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And they're great a great family.
Yeah.
Very easy to work with, but yeah, they let there's no, you know, we talk once a quarter, just to kind of give them a update.
Yeah. So I read somewhere that that show specifically, y'all did better than Denver, better than the NFR in Vegas, like blew everything out of the water that you had ever done before.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sure you weren't mad about leaving Houston.
I was really disappointed. Brought a tear to a glass eye. Yeah.
So that was in 1 year. So how long have you been? So let me back up. That was, you landed a location out off of I-20. Today we're sitting in your store in the stockyards.
Right.
At what point did you say, okay, we need a retail space?
This kind of came up out of the blue. I mean, I wasn't really looking to have a retail store down here, but we were in our third year. 2018 was our final. I believe that was our final year at the stock show, and that 2019. I think we did 2019, but 2018 in December, Greg Brown called me up and he said, "Hey, I'm buying this building, and I'd really like to see you in here. You know, you're my first choice." And so I went. You know, he called me while we were driving out to NFR, and I said, "Oh man, I don't know, Greg. And I don't know. It's like I need something more on my plate." But when I got back, I went and looked at it and brought Lynn down and checked it out, and we decided that this would be a great opportunity for us to be down at the stockyards. And then, geez, the development across the street, down the road there, Mule Alley.
Right.
I mean, it's a great. We all feed on each other, so it's a great spot. It's a great spot to be in. So, we opened up in 2019. So 2018 was our last show. We came in here, and then COVID hit. So really good timing on opening a store.
Yeah, right.
So we were closed from March through most of May, and then this was a ghost town down here for another 3 months.
Yeah.
June, July, and August, and it finally started ticking back up in September.
I'm curious to know, Rick, like, is there any way you could have predicted when you started this thing, like where it is now, or what it has grown to? Like, did you have any visions of what it is now?
No, not sales-wise, yes. But to say you're going to be, if you were going to talk to me and I'm in Steamboat in 2006, and even moving to knowing that you were going to relocate down to New Mexico, El Paso area, but everything else beyond that is just, I can't put words to it.
Right.
It's been real special. Been a real special trip for me. Nick found the love of his life here. I mean, there's so many things that have happened in our lives over this period of time. It's amazing. Man, we're so blessed.
Right, but I think you talk about luck, and yes, some of it may be luck, but unless you show up, that luck doesn't happen. So I talk about this all the time, like show up consistently with a focused intent, which it seems like you did very well, and good shit will happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
I say the harder you work, the luckier you are.
For sure. For sure.
That's kind of the way I approach it.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, is there like a mantra? I want to tap into your mindset a little bit here. Like, what is the self-talk going through your head? Like, how do you continue to get better and improve the brand of Schaefer?
Back when I first started with Schaefer, I got a call from a guy at what's the name of that agency that handled Leo Burnett agency out of Chicago, who developed the Marlboro Man. And I'm talking to this guy, and he was wanting us to make some special clothing, because back then, of course, you had print ads and all that for tobacco products still going. And I started talking to him about this Marlboro, because it was for Marlboro ads. And what he told me is that, that to have a Marlboro Man, they've had several, having a Marlboro Man with that smokes Marlboro cigarettes, he said, that's done, it's at that time it was like the best campaign they'd ever developed. Really,
Right.
if you think about it,
Yeah.
it makes sense that it really was kick-ass,
Yeah.
And it's not about selling the cigarettes to cowboys. It's about influencing people, romancing the West, and having these tough guys smoking Marlboro, and that influences everybody else. Because everybody, generally speaking, there's a cowboy in all of us. There's that dream of just being free and being out in the West and shooting guns and riding horses and driving cattle and all that stuff. And that really stuck in my head, and that is what I live to this day. That's how I run it. Is that we have Marlboro guys. And I've softened it up here and there a little bit, trying to target, a younger demographic. But generally speaking, I mean, if you look at all these posters, that we have, all the imagery that we have, it's a Marlboro Man presentation of our product.
Savvy. Very savvy. Yeah, that fascinates me, and I want to get your input on that, the marketing side of it, because that is psychology of human beings, plays such a huge role, and we don't even know it a lot of times. You go into like a Target or one of those stores like that, they have strategically placed product in that store, and we don't even know it, but they've studied the human behavior, and they know, like, you walk in here, this percent of people is going to go to the right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so have you tapped into some of that, and what have you learned, I guess, throughout your career of doing this?
When we develop a product, and I used to did all the designs for years, designed everything for years. Now I have a production manager who has a design degree who helps me. I'll say, I want to do this. Then she'll tweak it, so I don't have to get too deep in the weeds on it. But from a product development standpoint, I prefer to. It's kind of its own thing. It's its own. It's got its own name. It has its own copy. It presents a. It's presented in such a way that there's kind of like a little mini business plan for each thing.
For each item.
Yeah. So those products, when I start to think about a product or an idea, it's what name does it get? What does it do? It has some, versus what I was saying before is like a shirt, and bullet points on, it's 100% cotton, it has snaps, it's a relaxed fit, whatever. I mean, I invest a lot more time and energy into each product so that it means something.
Right.
It means something.
Yeah.
It's not just some, hey, let's come up with another jacket.
Yeah.
It's got to have some. It's got to have some usefulness.
Yeah.
And some function and so forth.
No, that's interesting. I've never thought about it like that. Yeah, but people, they buy an experience. They want to buy the feeling
Right.
of something.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit before we got going here, but the show Yellowstone. Most of my listeners are going to know what the show Yellowstone is, and so you guys have y'all's products on the show. Can you talk a little bit about like what that has done for the brand, just having that exposure on a show like that?
It's been special for us. I mean, we've had numerous products on there the first 3 seasons. This 4th season we have a product placement where they're kind of emphasizing the brand a little bit more than what they did if they were just, buying it from us and, having Kevin Costner wear it.
Right.
But we're finally getting to that point in our size that people are, they know what it is.
Right.
So for years,
some brand recognition.
somebody would buy something and put it on there, and we knew it was on. It was in the show, and you watch the movie or whatever, and you see them wearing it, and that's cool. But nobody knows it's a Schaefer product.
Right.
So now they know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just pops up on social. Hey, did you see, Kevin Costner wearing that wool vest again? And it's just it really has. You can't. It's very difficult to measure the impact on it, but it's it's a special relationship that it has unmeasurable return, but it's very measurable to me. That we know that we're building the brand,
right?
With Yellowstone, we do know that.
Yeah, I want to know this, and I'm sure a lot of young entrepreneurs would want to hear this answer too. Like when you were starting out, when you were getting going, did you ever struggle with like the comparison game, or maybe like an imposter syndrome? Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like where you think, what am I doing? Who do I think I am to run this business? Or did you like maybe play the comparison game of, well, so-and-so's doing this and I'm not necessarily meeting the expectations I have of myself? And I'm not projecting that on you. If that wasn't a thing, I just know a lot of folks struggle with that today.
I didn't. With the background that I had, I kind of hit the ground running. Like I said, the most difficult thing was just getting stuff made.
Right.
But as far as rebranding, the photography, we started, the photography I did back then was good, but I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
On the photography side.
Yeah.
But gradually figured that out. Because when you look at what everybody else is doing, not from the standpoint, it's just the presentation of the product and all that. You can easily get sucked into just laying a coat down on the table and shooting it. 50% of the mail order companies do to this day. Right. And I always just wanted to capture the essence of the working cowboy.
Uh-huh.
And so there was a little bit of a learning curve there, just from what you're trying to get to from an image standpoint. You're going back then, you're looking at slides and studying, slides with a loop on a light table.
Right.
And I've done that gone through thousands and thousands and thousands of slides. But once we got to those first couple of years where that part of it wasn't hitting the mark. When we got to the Bell Ranch and shot there, it clicked. It clicked. I took my gang down there, and they were all cowboys, and we shot with them, mixed up with the guys down there, and it to this day, those shots are iconic. And that sort of set the standard of what of what we need to get going forward.
Right.
You know, do you end up with a slacker shot every now and then? Yeah, you know, when you're in a hurry or whatever. But the product that I talk about, you know, that it has its own identity, it has its own use.
Yeah.
I really put a lot of emphasis on that.
Yeah, and you can tell. You can definitely tell, and as they say, you can't fake the funk. You know.
Yeah.
So it definitely comes through. You can just walk through the store and see everything has a lot of thought put into it. It's very genuine, very authentic.
Yeah.
To the cowboy lifestyle. I'll segue from what we were just talking about. I think with anybody who has achieved any level of success, there are some failures. There's a roller coaster, right? So I want to know from you: is there a favorite failure you have that maybe set you up for a later success?
I think that that 2008 crash, if you call it, or you know, the housing bubble and all that stuff, that really pushed me to invest some time and energy into the direct channel. So from 2000 to 2007, I always mailed a catalog, but it was 50,000. It wasn't, you know, just to have a little presence out there, have some kind of, you know, higher profit, you know, side money coming in the fall. It wasn't a big deal, and the majority of our business was wholesale. Well, when this happened, it challenged me to say, what am I going to do here? You know, there's no wholesale, and I have to keep making product, otherwise I lose my sewers.
Right.
And so we ratcheted up the catalog quantity, and I think the first quantity I sent out in 2008 was 100,000, but then I just started incrementally going up, 150, 200.
Did you do that with hesitation?
Yeah, you know, it's tough. You know, those are big bills.
Yeah.
Those are big bills. You know, you're spending, in that day, you're spending 50 cents a piece. You know, and somebody for our size, I mean, you know, it's $100,000. You know, for 200,000 catalogs, but the return was there.
Right.
So once you saw that return, I wasn't afraid to do it. You know, the first couple years, you're kind of crossing your fingers a little bit,
Yeah.
but then afterward, we were kind of on autopilot, and
you kind of had a formula, I guess.
Yeah, I had a formula.
Work.
Yeah, to this day, I have a formula for it, and so it's more challenging now because really, we should be we're mailing 300,000 catalogs this fall, and obviously with the inflation, there's a paper shortage, postage rates are going up, that really we should be mailing more, but we're at a point where, you know, social is helping sales
Right.
at a lower cost, and so I'm basically staying at the 300 and then paying for less prospects.
I got you. Yeah, I got to imagine. Is there a diminishing rate of return on those catalogs?
There is. The number of customers, you can keep adding on that, and you can stay at 250,000 prospects, which is kind of like the top 250 look-alike buyers to your customer in the country. So top 250. If you said, well, I want to mail 400,000 prospects, it just keeps, the return keeps dropping more and more and more, and finally you get to a point where you're not making anything. So the formula this year, because of the costs, is that we've doubled our customers over the last year. We've doubled our house file.
That's wild.
And so we're lowering the cost of our prospects because I'm going down on prospects. On the spring, I do 100,000 plus our customer. So we have this balancing act where we'll mail more in spring as long as we have more customers.
Right.
And on the other side, the 300,000 for fall, it's going to be less prospects, more customers. So
smart man. Where are you guys targeting geographically? Like, where are you sending all of that stuff out to?
it happens where it happens. And, you know, obviously we have a natural influence here, being in Texas. So Texas is our #1 state, California, Colorado. And then it could be number 5 could be Oklahoma, or it could be New York. So it really gets random after that.
Okay.
But the first 4 are set.
I got you.
But then after that, it could be, I mean, New York's in the top 10. Pennsylvania's in top 10.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of folks out there that love, dream about being out in the West.
Yeah.
And so they wear our stuff.
Yeah.
And pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Heck yeah, it is. This is a question I'd like to hear from anybody such as yourself. So, success can be defined in many different ways. How does Rick Grant define or determine what success is?
Being happy. Like I said earlier, we're blessed with what we have and love what you do. And that's success. If you're happy and you love what you do, you get up every morning excited to go to work and kind of have a game plan in your mind as you're driving to work. You can't beat that. You know, it's not. I don't define it by how much I make or what the sales are or whatever, because there's just there's an incremental growth that happens. It always has happened when we were involved. You know, it always went up. I never had a down year, never did. It just always got better and better and better.
Yeah.
And you know, with our multi-channel approach to things, you know, you can adjust and to get your sales up. You can make adjustments to that, but it's just happiness and enjoying what you do.
Yeah.
To me, it's just that simple.
Yeah, and it is so simple, right? It's sage advice, and for some reason we have it backwards in our heads sometimes. You know, we chase the dollar, and then we end up not happy.
Right.
And you know, I don't know where in society that got mixed up, but yeah, we tend to value, at least for me, tended to value the money side of it coming up versus doing what I really wanted to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think there's just a large population out there that is keeping up with the Joneses, and that's what their whole life is about.
Yeah. I know millionaires that are super unhappy. You know, so I've learned that money's not the answer to happiness.
Yeah.
And it's been said many times before, but I can promise you it's not. So this one's kind of along like what your routines and habits are, and this is a question I have a lot in my own life. Like, how do you determine, Rick, like what is productive use of your time versus non-productive use? And what I mean is, like, we want to think, like, if we go just balls to the wall all the time, that we're being productive. But I've learned, like, for me, I have to kind of step away from my business. You know, as a real estate investor, I have to step away from that. And it was hard for a long time because I viewed that as non-productive. So how do you find the balance, or have you found the balance over the years of doing what you do?
It's funny how being productive. You know, I thought productive back when I first started with Schaefer was, you know, I worked till 8 o'clock at night for years. For years I did that, and of course there's no email, there's no text, no cell phones. You have a fax machine and a phone, landline. That was it. And as you go through your life, the technology, how it's engulfed what you do every day.
Right.
I mean, you can get, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I think a person, an individual can do probably 3 to 4 times more in a day than they did 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just because of the technology.
Accessibility.
And so I kind of have, where I feel like I'm productive is that I have a routine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of dividing up the sections of the company into, marketing, production, sales, and separate those apart and invest, a third of the day into each. And then I try to come into work thinking, okay, what am I going to do today that is going to help the brand every day? So it could be a sale, or it could be a new contact that we come up with, that we end up partner up on something. But I'm always having that in the back of my mind, that what can I do today that's sort of outside of that.
Yeah. I think having those, like that intention every single day, it's like the universe conspires to make that happen. It's a focused intent.
I mean, obviously things are a little more complicated than they were in 2014 before we got bought out. But back then, I had such a perfect routine and I didn't have any help. I had nothing.
Yeah.
Nick was he was firefighting. He'd show up in the fall. My daughter was answering the phones and then was running the financials. Everything else was on my plate. And they came in, and my desk is clean. I have a bulletin board with all the production on there. And it really did. It looked so simple. It was simple. It was very simple. Very, very simple back then.
Yeah.
And I had that for 3 years. You could go off on vacation. Everything was under control. Mm-hmm. Everything was under control. Now we have a little bit of chaos going on because of our growth rate is higher. Right. There's a store. There's another store. There's people coming in that want to see you, and it throws a monkey in the wrench. And so what was really enjoyable was that when COVID hit, I wasn't a work-at-home guy. I hate working at home.
Right.
I like being in the, at the office.
Yeah.
And seeing what's going on. But I had just gotten a new tablet, and everything could be hooked in remotely and all this stuff, and thought we had COVID, so we were home for 14 days. Right. And I started going, man, this is awesome. I'm getting so much done. There's no interruptions, and really you could be done at 3 if you wanted to be.
Right.
Because you just this was shut down. There just wasn't. It was a simple time back then, and I talked to friends and about this all the time. When everybody had to work from home, they just thought, man, I just did great. I was so productive and got things done quick, and.
Yeah.
I like a routine. I like to have kind of set times that I invest in each of those 3 categories: production, marketing, sales.
Right on.
And I just do a little bit of put my time into that every day.
Yeah.
And so that keeps it, if you pick your favorite, and then and that's all you're doing, the other 2 suffer. So you got to really invest. For me, once we get up to a certain size, is there going to be another person that can handle that? Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But right now we're still at that we're still at that. We're kind of at the. We're getting damn close to where Rick needs some help.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
That is the only
Yeah.
way you can scale because you are one person.
Right.
It's very finite.
Yeah.
Well, tell me this, along those lines, like what is something that you wish you were better at? As good as you are at what you do, I'm sure you would agree, we can always improve on something. So is there anything like in your mind that you have consciously thought about? It's like, man, I wish I was better at this.
I would say that I'm a fair leader, not a great leader. I'm not a great leader. I'm not.
What makes you say that?
I just that's the way that's the way I kind of look at it.
What is it that you think you could do or should do to be better, I guess I should say?
I'm not much of a meeting guy. So, to have a weekly meeting,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind it, but it's easily one thing that goes, I don't need it. I don't need to do that. And that's not good. That's not a good thing.
Well, I don't know.
But everybody knows what's going on. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of communication going out there, but the problem is that I could send out a this is what's happening deal, which I really try to do in the fall because there is so much going on, and try to improve documents that we share with everybody. But the problem is nobody reads it.
Yeah.
Nobody reads it. So,
Yeah.
not everybody comes to work going, what can I do better today? They're just,
Yeah.
there's another level out there that, they're just there. All my employees love their job,
Mm-hmm.
but at 5 o'clock they're checked out.
Right.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
That's their right to have that, to go do something else.
Right.
But so to be able to, physically say, this is what we're doing, and be good at that and look forward to doing that. I really don't.
Yeah.
And that's a leadership flaw. So
I can understand that, but I'm also like, I used to be a drug rep, and we would have these meetings for an hour, and I've always said, like, don't make an hour-long meeting. Don't just have the meeting for an hour to have it for an hour, like when it can be done in 10 minutes.
right,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't do it just to check the box, I guess.
right.
But I do see what you're saying, like checking in and having those weekly meetings. It does build some type of a camaraderie, right?
Yeah, I
With
mean,
your
it's
team.
we're all good, and everybody knows what's going on. They're just it could be better.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I got you. It seems like you had it pretty well figured out in your younger days, but I always like to ask this question. It's a hypothetical question. If you could go back in time and give the 20-year-old Rick Grant advice, knowing what you know now, what advice do you give to yourself?
There isn't anything I would change. There's nothing I would change.
Right.
So I don't know what I would say to that 20-year-old, other than you got a hell of a ride coming.
Right on.
Because you're a hard worker,
Yeah.
but this is what you have coming, boy.
That's awesome.
And you're gonna love it.
Yeah.
You're gonna love every minute of it.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, Rick, I'm going to roll into some rapid, it's not a rapid fire because they seem to take longer than what a rapid fire round would be. So it's now the slow fire round. And it's brought to you by Ghostwood Distilling Company. What is a book that you have regifted to others most?
Hillbilly Elegy.
What is that about?
It's really just a real life story about a family you know, going through trials and tribulations, you know. It's I think, you know, they did a movie on it. Ron Howard
Really?
directed it. Yeah, and I have not seen the movie, but it's just that it's a drama about, you know, just the pains of a family going through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Hillbillyology.
Elegy.
Elegy.
Yeah.
Billy Elegy. This is a new question for this slow fire round. At a restaurant, do you always tip 20% or do you tip based on performance?
I tip on performance.
Right on. So have you ever walked out and not left a tip?
No, I've never done that. No. But I'm a good tipper.
Yeah.
You know, if we're taken care of well, it's 20%. I've always left more than a 20% tip, generally speaking.
Right on.
Unless I suppose somewhere along the line somebody got snubbed. But you know, I know that their livelihood is tips are a major part of
Right.
their living.
Right. What is the last thing that you Googled?
I think it was realtor.com.
Oh, really? you buying a place or selling a place?
Both. Both.
Right on.
I was talking to a buddy of mine that I'm getting ready to do some shirt projects with, and he has an account in Florida. They're a sport fishing company, and I Googled them up yesterday because I wanted to, and signed up for their email because I was interested in. I'm studying shirt drops right now.
No,
So
I'm naive. What is a shirt drop?
A shirt drop is where you're coming out with shirt styles, but they're short runs, and they're like gone in 3 days. And then you have another one, then you have another one, you have another one. So it's a way of...
Is that like proof of concept?
It's a way of keeping your customer engaged. So if I mail out the 300,000 catalogs, and there's to keep them rolling, obviously your best customer is the one that just bought, that you're introducing these new shirts to them, and I'm trying to work up a shirt drop marketing plan.
Oh, right on.
So is it once a month, or is it every other month? You know, do I start, you know, just stick my toe in the water and do that, or is it, you know, like I said, twice a month where you just have these like cool shirts, but there won't be, you know, you're testing in a way,
Yeah.
but you're also keeping the customer engaged with new stuff up and
Right.
above the new stuff that they're seeing in the catalog.
Right. I dig it.
So you've seen drops, you just didn't know what they were called. You know, you get an email and says, you know, here's a new shirt. We have this really cool shirt, and you go, you know, delete. But that shirt, probably most of these guys don't have a catalog that do drops. But I'm trying to incorporate drops as sort of a supplement sales in addition to what we already have going on.
Right on.
So I did Google them up yesterday to sign up to see how they do their drops.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah.
Alrighty, my friend. Last question.
Okay.
If you could have a giant billboard, metaphorically speaking, to get a message out to millions of people, what does the message say?
I'd like one of those really nice Vegas ones.
Yeah.
That change.
Okay.
The Schaefer logo on there, and the first tagline I ever came up with would probably be what I would use on it. And it's born in the West, worn for a lifetime.
Oh, I love it. Born in the West, worn for a lifetime. I love it.
So, and then just taking those Marlboro guys and just changing it out. Taking all your best shots and being on there.
Yeah.
That's an expensive billboard. You said I could have it, though.
Yeah, man, you can have it. Rick, I appreciate it, man. I've had a good time with you here today, and thank you for all that you do and that Schaefer does for the Converse Cowboy Show. Letting us come in here is a privilege, and I do not take it for granted, so I really appreciate it. And
You're quite welcome. We appreciate you.
Yeah,
You're a good friend.
You.
You're a good friend of ours.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. That's all I have for you, my friend.
All right.